On my flight home, the first line of my notes read, "This has been the most impactful trip of my life. Thank you, church, for sending me. Because you sent me, I got to spend a week with 40 other Christians serving in the jungles of Ecuador." I went with the Hanna Project. The Hanna Project is a project-based organization. They are strictly project-based so that they can get restricted access into countries that do not allow Christians, like Muslim countries like Bangladesh and Morocco. Our flight, we flew from Atlanta to Quito, and we landed here in Quito. Quito is the second highest capital city in the world, sitting at 9,350 feet above sea level. It sits in the Andes Mountains and it sits in between several active volcanoes. After leaving Quito, we traveled 4 hours into the jungle and stopped at the Saint House. Many of you know the Saint House, or the Saints, because of Brother Corey. His favorite missionary, Jim Elliott, and Nate Saint, with 3 other guys, went in and tried to reach the Auca Indians. On the picture on the left, those were the items that they used to lower the items that they were giving to the Aucas. And then on the right, that is our entire group in front of the Saint House. Across the street is the airstrip that they flew out of. Nate was the pilot, and so he bought that house and planted that and specifically so that he could fly out of that airstrip. These were the things that Nate used to contact Jim and all the other people while they were flying. When they went on their final flight, the wives sat here at this desk listening to Nate and talking to him. They never mentioned the name Auca. They would use keywords so that no one else would hear about their mission or no one else would get the idea that they were going to reach the Aucas. After 4 more hours of travel into the jungle, we landed in a small town of Mishawazi. Mishawazi is about 30 minutes from where Palm Beach is. Palm Beach is where Jim Elliott and all of his friends' bodies were actually found. So Mishawazi was actually in Auca territory at one point. This is the beautiful view from my room. I got so lucky to stay in the 3rd floor at the top of the building to see. As you can see in the picture, it is it's poverty to us, but to them, it's just their way of life. On the left, that is actually a school building. A bunch of kids would meet. I could hear them screaming at about 7 a.m. They woke me up most mornings, and they would play, and that's where one of the schools was. And then on the right, that is the small town of Mishawazi. On the picture on the left, I looked out my window one morning and saw a monkey looking directly into my eyes. We slept with our windows open since they did not have AC, and I have a video of him running across and almost jumping straight at my face. And then after we walked out of our hostel and we saw this little monkey. That picture is not zoomed in. That is exactly how close I got to him. The living conditions, like I said, to us, it's extreme poverty, but to them, they don't know any better. Most houses were sitting on bamboo with a tin roof, and that's just what they knew. One house we would drive by every morning going to the school had a hammock in the middle, and that's where they slept. And the lady, you could see her little tiny refrigerator, but oddly enough, she had Spectrum TV there. Don't know how, but we saw that. The left is in Mishawazi, and then on the right is from Quito. So they're both, even though it's an 8-hour travel difference in between them, they are both pretty much all around the same living conditions. Antioch Christian Academy is where we served. Since we went with the Hanna Project, we did work on projects there. It's a beautiful private school. It has about 250 students, and the tuition is about $1,700, which to us is probably not a lot, but to them, their minimum wage is $400 a month. So it is very expensive to go to the school, but the reason it's expensive is so that the parents are involved with their kids' lives. The school's goal is to empower the children so that they can be leaders, but the parents need to be involved in their education as well. An example of that is Luis. We met Luis the first day we got there. He knew no English, but he told us about his testimony. He lived in Quito for most of his life. He got married, or he started drinking alcohol when he turned 14. and he got married soon after that. He kept drinking, and he had 2 kids during that. He soon after started abusing his wife. After he started abusing her, she left. The wife left with both the kids. She moved to Mishawazi, enrolled both of her children into Antioch Christian Academy. Soon after, he followed her to want to be involved in his children's life, and he went to the owner of the school and asked to work. The owner told him, Roberto told him that he would work, but he had to start rehab. Luis did not. He started going to church. He wanted to save his faith, his face. He cared more about drinking than he did about his kids. His kids started to hate him, and that's when he realized that his drinking was a severe problem. This happened in July of last year. He went to Roberto again, and Roberto told him that he would pay for rehab if he went. Luis went into rehab, and within 3 days he was saved, and he has been clean ever since. Luis is now the main construction guy at the school, and he was telling us what to do most of the time. But that's just one of the examples of Antioch wanting your parents to be involved with their children's education. This was the jungle gym and their gym at the school. It was the most beautiful place I've ever been. The school is right in the middle of the jungle, and everywhere you look, you could take pictures of it all. These are my students. So during the morning, the girls would teach class, and then in the afternoon, the girls would go to work with the men. So I taught 3rd grade matter and science, and these are a few of my students. I had a class of 18. That's David, Martina, and Sayi. And David on the right, we had this little bug, and when you put it under the sun, it would shake a little bit. But the funny thing is, that morning I walked into the classroom, and that bug is fake, but there was a bug about that size in the classroom. And I looked at the teacher, and I kind of got her attention, and she walked over, and I said, "We need to get rid of it." And she didn't know any English, but she told the translator no, that it wasn't poisonous. And she looked at me like I was crazy for wanting to kill this massive bug that she was letting crawl around with these poor kids. So on Thursday, I got to work with the preschoolers. We kind of did like an outside field day with them, and that's Fuebe, the one around my neck. She took one of my bracelets, and she said she wasn't giving it back, and I was perfectly fine with that. On the right, these are 2 girls who lived in the resident home. So there's a home full of 6 girls on campus. These girls live far away from the school. Exactly, both of them, it's a 1-hour drive, a 30-minute boat ride, and then a 30-minute hike to get to their tribe. In this picture, they had just asked me, they had gotten on my phone and they saw my hair, my long hair on my Instagram, and they asked me to take out my hair. They could not believe how beautiful my hair was. And we started talking. She got on my phone and looked at pictures of snow, and she had absolutely no idea what snow was. She had never seen it. Then I started telling her about air conditioning because they don't have it there. And she looked at me and she said, "When you're hot, you get in the river." And I said, "No," I said, "You don't get hot." And she thought that was the weirdest thing. Although the language barrier was pretty difficult, God's love was shown. It was so obvious through the kids. They were hugging us, they were loving us. They are learning about God through the school, but they were a blast to be around. This is us working. On the left, it was my lesson. I did matter, and we were playing with cornstarch and water because it was a solid and then it turned into a liquid. And then the next lesson was about math, and we were all cashiers, and they would go pick out an item from our little store and they would buy it from us. And they just thought that was the coolest thing ever. This is their basketball team along with us. So we were told that they have a pretty good basketball team, but they wanted to play us. And so our coach told us, she was like, "Don't kill them, but don't go easy on them." So we started playing. They beat us 3 games. It was 12-0 all 3 games. They were very good, and most of them were playing against 18-year-olds when they were only 30. The kid on the right, his name is Kit. He is one of the missionaries' sons, and so he grew up in the States and then he moved there recently. And so I was talking to him and I was like, "What's your favorite fast food restaurant?" And he said, "There ain't no Chick-fil-A around here." And he was just a joy to be around. He was one of my favorites. The girls, in the mornings we worked in the classroom, and then in the afternoon we were told to get rid of this rock pile. So we the rock was placed on just another pile that they had made, and Ecuadorians don't think like we do. We would think that if we're going to place rocks somewhere, we're going to put them where they need to go, rather than putting them somewhere and then having to move them the second time. So we had to take tires. When we started, there was one tire, and then when we finished, we had to fill all the tires. We had to fill the rim with rocks, fill more rocks in the middle, and then fill it with dirt, and then we layered it. So that, we had Ecuadorians working with us for a little bit, but that was what we got done in 3 days. Soon enough, they ran out of projects for the girls and for the guys. They worked hard too. This was worship. On Sunday, we had church, and someone had like a jungle, I don't know how to explain it, but he had this little hut, and all of us had church. We met with the missionaries, and we had church in there. And then every night, we had a debrief and worship. This was one of the best things because we all got to talk about our day, what helped us, what kind of tore us down, and what we could do to help each other as a team. On our last day, we went to the Equator. This was extremely cool. These people became family. They said 100 times that it was the biggest group the Hanna Project has ever had, but each person was placed by God there. We had doctors, we had construction workers, we had teachers, and we had teenagers who just wanted to love on kids. And that's exactly what we got to do. On the right, that's Kurt Holland. He was the leader of my team, and he's the director of field ministry for the Hanna Project. On our flight home, coming from the mountains to Quito, we gained 14,000 feet in elevation, which is not good for people who's never been who has never been acclimated. And then we left Quito, and that was a 6-hour flight to Atlanta. When we landed in Atlanta, I was fine, but when we started to board the flight, I told the girl beside me, I said, I'm about to vomit. I was like, I'm sicker than a dog, I don't know what I'm about to do, and we're about to be on a flight. So Kurt knew I was feeling very sick, and he took my backpack. That's him holding my backpack. He had 100 people to take care of, but he was taking care of me. He did not let me touch my backpack until he knew that I could carry it far enough so that I could see my dad. And then another person, Danny Gasperson, he's the leader of the Hanna Project. He was knee-deep in the mud, just like I was. We had several international missions, people high up who were working just as hard as we were. They were also giving lessons to the teachers and staff. So how can you help? You can go. I told my college class this morning that it would be the biggest dream of mine to take a group to Ecuador from New Hope. I promised Natalie and Corinne that I would be back next year, and I hope to bring some of you. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter who you are. You can help. If you're a preacher, you can help. If you are a doctor, you can give to these kids. You can love on them, you can work in construction like the men did. They built a cafeteria, or you can come teach classes with me. They always have something to do. You can give. Jungle Kids for Christ does this thing where you can sponsor a child. When you sponsor a child, you give $45 a month to this child. It pays for about half of their tuition. It's only half so that the parents will take part. You're not alleviating all the pressure, but you're kind of going hand in hand with their parents. Once you decide you're going to sponsor a child, you will get weekly updates and monthly updates about your child. And if you go back to Ecuador, you'll get to meet your child as well. And you can pray. I know that there were so many people in this church praying for me on this trip. And I was so excited. I was so thankful that I got to go. Thank you for giving to me. If you helped me in any of my past E-Team trips that I was supposed to go on, that money went directly into my account for this trip. And then the ones who picked up the pace, who I hadn't fully paid for my next trip, they had already helped me pay, and then New Hope covered the rest. Thank you so much for sending me. Along with that, you also paid for this little girl, her name is Hazel, her tuition. That was included in my trip. Church, I cannot tell you thank you enough. This trip has changed my life, and I hope that some of you can go along with me next year.